Hello, YouTube. GJK and Andre. Salut. Hello, all. And others hiding there, but I'm saying hi to you guys since you already posted. Anyway, welcome, everybody. Hello, WC. Manda. Hit that thumbs up. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Welcome, guys. Yeah, we're ready to go on TikTok, too. So hang on here. We are ready, Freddy. Ready, Freddy. Boom. Mirror my video. There we go. TikTok's ready too. Fill spots faster by, who knows what that is. Oh, that's a TikTok's weird thing where they're trying to get me to bring other people on the show. Oh boy. Hello. I had a nap earlier today. I had a allergy pill with, like 2 allergy pills, which I was gone. I had to take a nap. I was just kind of like, bleh. I'm better now ish. But what am I doing? Oh, that's that. I'm trying to figure out what's in my camera range. Anyway, welcome TikTok. Welcome everybody. So I had a good nap. I'm still like groggy, but I think it's because I had 2 allergy pills. So I just slept pretty well. I think she's that heat. I got a heat mat thing for my dog. First of all, the crazy ass thing stayed warm for dropping things. That crazy ass thing stayed warm for 14, 15 hours. I mean, something insane. So that was really good. I mean, it probably wasn't warm enough at that point, but still crazy. So that was nice. But yeah, it stayed warm more than long enough. I think she liked it. It's hard to tell because it kind of gets near me anyway. So I brought it near me. So I think, we're talking about my dog's new bed heater thingy that I put in bed with me, but I think she really liked it. So thank you for asking, Jeffrey. Anyway, welcome everybody. Hello, TikTok, YouTube. Oh, I'm going to yawn at you. I shouldn't, but I am. I had a good nap today, but I think it was one of those naps where you just sleep so long that you're kind of like, oh, so I'm a little bit good, kind of in a good way, but made some blondie, some chocolate chip bar cookies. So that makes me, I'm going to try those for tonight later with some ice cream, make me happy. Barn cats. Yeah, no, I can imagine this being a good for outdoor animals. Anyway, welcome guys. We'll talk about dogs at the end, like we always do. Ish. This weekend is our coffee talk, remember? So tomorrow, Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern time US, we have our get together for the weekend, folks, for everybody who's a paid monthly subscriber. That's all the super fans on TikTok, the YouTube and Discord monthly subscribers as well. So join us for that. Carol, we already talked about it, but I'll talk about it again at the end of the show. So welcome everybody. Otherwise, yeah, so coffee talk is tomorrow, 11 a.m. Join us if you're a monthly subscriber. If you're not, maybe become one. On TikTok, I don't know. There may be a star button or something at the bottom of the screen. I don't know. Somebody knows how to become a super fan. But check it out if you would. YouTube and Discord should be easier to figure out. So welcome, guys. So I'm ready to get rolling. As I said, I'm going to yawn at you tonight because I had a nap. And the nap was good, but it kind of made me like, bleh. And then what else did I do? I had some hot chocolate too, thinking that would help. And I think it did. You know what? I'm in one of those modes, I think, when I have hot chocolate or whatever in the afternoon, where I'm hyper tired. So like, I'm probably talking even faster now, but I'm still really tired, which is insane. It wakes me up and then I'm still kind of like, anyway, it's okay. It's okay. So let's get rolling, guys. We'll start talking about some poll news for Trump. Not very good news, but that's good news for the rest of us. I'm going to adjust my lighting. Ooh, that's a little too bright. I mean, good for you, but too bright for me. It's hard to adjust the lighting because, like, if it's well, I'll show you what happens. If my lighting's off, this is how my lighting is. This is why we use lighting when we do broadcasts like this. It's not good. But like this, to get this kind of lighting, it's kind of bright. It's kind of bright. And it annoys me, but this reminds me of going on TV. When you go on TV, the lights in the TV studio are really bright and nothing you can do about it, but it's just kind of like, it's annoying because I've always got like a light sensitivity. So it's always kind of like, it's just too much for me, but it's fine. This is, I can handle this. This is the edge of what I can handle. All right, anyway, enough of that. Welcome, guys. Let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about ICE. Let's talk about Greenland. We've got some Ukraine news too. A little confusing Ukraine news, I will say. Political reports a series of bad trolls. That's true. Bad polls for Trump regarding Ukraine and lots of other stuff. Listen to this, not Ukraine, but ICE. A new CNN poll finds that 58% of respondents called Trump's first term a failure, his first term, with 55% saying Trump's policies have hurt the economy and 64% saying Trump hasn't done enough to reduce the cost of everyday goods. 64% think Trump hasn't done enough on inflation. That's huge. That is a very high number. Only 42% of Americans approve of his handling of immigration. Again, he should be doing great in immigration. Republicans typically do well on immigration. Only 42% of Americans approve of Trump's handling of immigration, down 9 points from March. That's interesting too. Down 9 points, guys. So he was at a positive, what would that be? 51%, and dropped to 42 on inflation, on immigration, which means, interestingly, usually like people like Trump, when Republicans do get tough on immigration, people like it. What they're seeing is starting to freak them out. Americans are not liking the violence they're seeing from ICE. I saw a video today. Oh my God. There's a video today from the ICE guys, and they're harassing some American mom. And she's an immigrant, but she's a mom. She's an American. Sounds to me like, you get a quick look at her hand and you hear her accent. Sounds to me like she's from the Middle East originally. Callum thought maybe she was Persian, Iranian. I thought either that or Middle Eastern overall, Arab. And they're harassing, mind you, some mom walking down the street, American. And of course, in masks, these guys like thugs come and say, show us your ID. And this woman, God bless her, in the most American way possible, says, I'm an American. I don't have to show you my ID, which is true. Ma'am, we need to see your ID. I don't need to show you my ID. Yes, you do. I don't even need to have an ID. She goes, this is the United States. I'm an American. By law, I don't have to carry an ID. That's the way it works in America. And they're like, ma'am. Well, the other guy, mind you, these guys are masked, of course, thugs. The other guy gets his phone out and he's filming her face now because, unfortunately, they've got a contract, I think it's with Peter Thiel's company, where they now use software to identify people. Remember, guys, for the trolls on TikTok, anybody who's saying crazy stuff about giving you money, they're scammers. I know, because somebody will click through. All they need is one person to go, and then they're going to rip you off and steal your money. So you never want to respond to people like that on TikTok. So, this woman, and she's totally right. In America, you don't have to carry an ID. You don't have to prove you're a citizen. Show me your papers is as NZ as it gets in our country. You don't do that in America. Now you do. Donald Trump said he wants to do it. Well, this woman goes on for 5 minutes with these guys. Again, they're, the thugs, right? Covering their face like the chicken cowards they are. And this woman just keeps going, I'm an American. I don't have to show you my ID. Ma'am, you do. No, I don't. Finally, and possibly because maybe they had already figured out who she was using the technology. And again, guys, they're walking around with technology now and going up to US citizens and taking pictures of your face and feeding it to a computer to pull up your information, to pull up everything about you, including whether you're a citizen, based on nothing. This was not a traffic stop. They did not stop this woman because they had credible, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm forgetting my legal term. I'm a lawyer. I'm forgetting my legal terms for a traffic stop. There was no concern at all about her. The concern was she looked dark. She looked like a foreigner. Probable cause. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. There was no probable cause. There was no cause at all. She looked dark. She looked like a foreigner. And then once they started talking to her, she had an accent. Like I said, sounded like a Middle East accent. And to these thugs, you're no longer allowed to have an accent in America. My mom and all of her family came from Greece. They all had accents. My grandparents on my dad's side all had accents. They were all born in Greece, right? Now, that's no longer okay in Trump's America anymore. They finally walked away and left her alone. I think it's because they used the technology to determine who she was, which again, telling Callum today, if Republicans don't understand, if Trump supporters, I should say, do not understand why this matters, and they think it's okay to go up to strangers on the street, any American on the street, take a picture of you and database you, because by the way, they're recording that stop. By checking the database, they've now recorded where you are. They've recorded meeting you. They pulled up your citizenship information. I think Democrats should say, okay, if you're okay with this, when the next Democratic president takes over, we're going to do this in the parking lot of gun and ammo sale places. We're just going to set up police, and they're going to photograph all your faces. They do it with license plates as well now. Photograph all your license plates and your faces, and we're going to create a database of everybody who goes to any of the stores, any of the Second Amendment stores. And we're going to create a database of you people. Now, not supposed to create a database of them. Okay, then we'll just go and chronicle who you all are. We promise we won't create a database. We'll do just like Donald Trump. We're just going to go and photograph all of you, have law enforcement. By the way, law enforcement covered up entirely. And they're going to photograph all the Second Amendment people and find out who they are and pull up all their information. And I'd say even go up to them and make them all prove who they are. Make them all prove that they're Americans or arrest them like they're doing to these people. I don't think they'd be very happy with that, because the problem is all the Second Amendment people said this was why they were practicing the Second Amendment, because they wanted to stop this from happening. Because in America, by the way, Republicans used to say they didn't want a national ID. We don't have a national ID in America because Republicans thought it was like World War II Germany. We literally don't have a national ID. There is no identity card in America. We aren't required to have a ID at all. A lot of us have driver's licenses, obviously. We typically in America, thank you, Bryce, we use our driver's license as our ID. That's typically what we do in America. When we go abroad, then we've got to get a passport. But a lot of Americans, 70% of Americans didn't have passports before. Now it might be 50%. I forget the exact number. A huge number of Americans don't have passports. And again, you can get a driver's license if you want, because you kind of need one anyway, because if you want to set up a bank account, you need a driver's license, right? So you need for stuff like that. But at a federal level, at a police level, you don't have to have an ID unless you're driving a car, right? But that's it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this is typically Republicans were the ones, as I said, that were anathema about national IDs, anathema about stopping American citizens and asking for your papers. Horrific. Now they're okay with it. And I say, if they're okay with it, we need to make clear to them that we're going to be okay with it. And we're going to do it the same way they're doing it. It's only going to be in Texas and Mississippi and Alabama. It'll be in all the Republican states. And they want to go to the places Democrats go, and we'll go to the places they go. See how they like it. Yeah. And maybe we can finally get that database of Second Amendment people we've always wanted. A little more on the polls. An AP, a little more on the polls here. 39% approve of Donald Trump's handling of foreign affairs. An AP NORC survey released today shows only 16% of Republicans say Trump has helped a lot in curbing inflation. This is pretty cool. Only 16% of Republicans say Trump has helped a lot in addressing inflation. Down a whopping 33 points from an April 2024 poll when they were asked about Trump's first term. So during Trump's first term, Republicans felt that 33% of Republicans felt Trump did a lot to tackle inflation. Now they're down to 16% for this term, half. A new Marist poll finds 56% of Americans oppose taking military action in Venezuela. 69% oppose military action in Greenland. 69%. Most telling, 57% of Americans believe Trump's decisions have weakened the U.S. role on the global stage. So Americans overwhelmingly think Donald Trump and MAGA have made our country weaker internationally than stronger. It's true, but it's interesting for this stuff to, no. Here's the funny thing. Somebody in the comments, probably MAGA, said, he doesn't care about polls. Here's the thing. Donald Trump doesn't care about polls, and he really cares about polls. He is desperate. He's the little boy who daddy never loved him, and he is desperate for help, desperate for love. Daddy loved the older brother more. Daddy didn't love Donald enough. And Donald is desperate to be loved. And the thing is, only people who love him are the people he doesn't love. Donald Trump's base, Donald Trump does not love his base. That is not typical of Donald Trump. Donald Trump loves people with money. And he likes people, right? That's like his Mar-a-Lago. He wants people with money there. But the thing is, for Trump especially, he wants old money. He wants the New York Times. He wants Martha's Vineyard. He wants all the New England money he's never going to get, ever, ever, ever. So when you say Donald Trump doesn't care about polls, Donald Trump cares about polls. He cares very much that people don't like him. The problem is he's still going to go ahead and do it, right? So in the end, Donald Trump is also a bully. He's a narcissistic, insecure bully, so that he's still going to go ahead and do stuff, right? If the poll is against him, but it's going to bother him a lot. And that's still good. Now, as I always say, what's most important with the polling isn't Donald Trump. What's most important with the polling is Republicans in Congress, because they look at these polls and they see how unhappy people are with Trump, and they worry about what's going to happen with the next election in November, the congressional election, when Democrats can get very close to taking back the House of Representatives. And if they do, it's game over for Trump in terms of, well, it's game over in many ways for Trump, because now Republicans have to negotiate with Democrats on the budget. Democrats will have the committees to investigate Trump's crimes. They will have the committees to subpoena all of Trump's staff, all of those military people out there who are enabling Trump and obeying the illegal orders can be subpoenaed as well. So very interesting what happens at that point. Trump ratcheted up his rhetoric today, saying he may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with his plan to absorb Greenland. So there's a lot of interesting stuff here. First of all, remember when Trump said, I said this was going to happen. Nobody should negotiate tariff relief with Trump. No country should do it, because he's going to screw you. He doesn't care. Trump does not Trump does not abide by the deals he negotiates. He never does. He always goes back on them later. Trump was negotiating tariffs, and that was supposedly going to be it. Look what he's doing now. He's negotiating tariffs with Brazil, and then he put 50% tariffs on Brazil because he got mad because they prosecuted their former president who tried to violently overthrow the government, and Trump liked the guy. Okay? Now he's negotiating trade deals with the European Union, and now he's threatening to put tariffs on them if they don't like his deal to invade and go to war with Greenland and Denmark. Excuse me? I thought they were already negotiating a trade deal. So in other words, what Donald Trump said today was, it doesn't matter if you negotiate a trade deal with him. He will turn around and hit you with higher tariffs anyway, even if you've made concessions and you reach a deal, because that's what he's doing today to the Europeans. So no deal is worth it with him. He will never abide by any deal. So Trump today said, if the Europeans disagree with him on going to war with Greenland and Denmark, on America invading NATO, okay, going to war with a NATO ally, bombing a NATO ally, that he's going to put tariffs on them just for disagreeing. And again, I hope he does, and I hope the Europeans finally wake up and they put tariffs back on him. Thank you, Blue. I think at some point we need the Europeans and the foreigners to say, you know what? You're right. You want a trade war? Let's have a trade war. You want to put 100% tariffs and shut down trade? We'll shut down trade. See how the Americans do when so much of our economy now is based on things from abroad. The reason we're able to get cheap goods, all those cheap goods we got, most of them come from foreign countries. Half of the materials in your car come from foreign countries. Did you know that? Half. Google it. 50% of every car in America comes from abroad. You want that price to double? Great. Guess what's going to happen? Your car is going up by 50% if that price doubles. Okay, no problem. Coffee's already going up because he put tariffs on Brazil, 50% tariffs on Brazil. The Europeans ought to say, you know what? You're going to suffer, Europe. You're going to suffer if Donald Trump puts higher tariffs. But Americans are going to suffer too. And going into an election this year, Americans are going to freak out if Donald Trump picks a trade war with Europe and American prices go through the roof. Americans are going to lose it come the next election. And some European leader needs to tell Donald Trump that and say, you want to have a trade war with us? You go for it, because my people aren't going to like it, but I don't have an election for 5 years. You've got an election in 11 months and 10 months, and you see what the American people are going to do when inflation goes through the roof. So go ahead, Donald, put tariffs on us. No, I mean, and by the way, he's going to keep doing this to you anyway, right? Again, Trump made the initial tariff threat, and all of your countries sat down and negotiated with him to make the threat go away. It's back again now because of Greenland. He's always going to bring the tariff threat back again and again and again. Again, it's never going to go away unless you literally, every single time you need to tell him, I would tell him twice. I would say, you know what? In the future, anytime you threaten tariffs, we're going to put tariffs on you anyway. And we're going to double whatever you threaten anytime. And say, that's it in the future. And we're doing it. And Europe should do it as a block and say, no, if anytime, no more of this negotiating stuff. You want a trade war, that's fine. Canada and Mexico too. You want a trade war, that's fine. But you wait and see what's going to happen. I'm telling you guys, with the elections coming up, this is huge now, what's going on with the elections coming up in terms of Trump's vulnerability. So here's a couple issues with regards to, first of all, the tariffs, because Trump's threatening all these tariffs on NATO countries now if they don't agree that he should go to war against Denmark and Greenland and invade our NATO allies. Trump can't do that. This is illegal. Under U.S. law, Congress sets tariffs. The president can only set tariffs for, thank you, Succeed. The president can only set tariffs for economic emergencies. Now, we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to weigh in, and they'd better weigh in and reinforce this law and stand by the law. Trump has already made clear he's not threatening to put tariffs on Europe because of an economic emergency. He's threatening it because he thinks, thank you, Kelly, he thinks the Russians and he's lying, by the way, but he claims the Russians and the Chinese could invade and take Greenland if Trump doesn't invade first. Okay, that's not an economic emergency. That's a national security emergency. That's a political emergency. That's war. That is not an economic emergency. Trump has no power to put tariffs on any European country because of their positions on his invading Greenland. It is not an economic emergency. And let's hope the Supreme Court one of these days comes through with their opinion and says this is illegal. Only Congress can do this. Second of all, a U.S. invasion of Greenland would be illegal under U.S. law. The president has lots of power to do, even his attacks in Venezuela, he's got lots of power under U.S. law to do things short of going to war, okay? Meaning he does things that are going to war that aren't necessarily called wars anymore. But declaring war on Greenland and Denmark in order to steal Greenland from Denmark and annex it as part of America is the very definition of war. I can't imagine any court that says you invaded a foreign country in order to take their land and annex it, and that's not war. That's war. It's illegal for Trump to do it, basically, without Congress's approval. Then you get the fun question there. Thank you, Jen. People could say, well, if it's illegal, so what? Well, if you're in the U.S. military and you're following an illegal order, if you're obeying an illegal order, you go to prison. Now, you won't go to prison under Donald Trump because Trump doesn't care that he's giving you illegal orders. You will go to prison under a Democratic administration. And everybody who's in the military right now had better be paying attention because Trump cannot pardon you for military crimes. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ, those are not pardonable crimes. Trump cannot pardon you. You will go to prison if you obey illegal orders from Donald Trump. This is why Trump got so upset when the Democratic members of Congress mentioned this a couple months ago, because it's true. It is true. You have a legal obligation under U.S. military law to disobey an illegal order. It is a legal obligation for troops. Why? Because of that little thing about Germans following orders in World War II and saying, I was just following orders. Well, that's no longer allowed under U.S. law. You can't follow any legal order. So and again, this is something where Democrats need to make some examples of people. I think when Democrats come back into power, they need to make some examples of some military leaders, at the very least, who followed orders and send the message down to everybody else. You get an illegal order and you follow it, you're in trouble. Thank you, Annie. A little more now. The other thing, thank you, Gene. Democrats, I think, should make very clear, Gene and Jen, Democrats should make very clear that if Trump goes to war and annexes Greenland from Denmark, we're just going to give it back. Trump can waste all the money and all the American lives he wants. On day one, we're giving it back. Democrats should just say that outright and say he's going to waste our monies. He's going to put the lives of our troops at risk, knowing full well that the next time a Democrat gets elected, day one, we are giving Greenland back to Denmark. It's gone. It's gone. It will be a waste of money and a waste of manpower. But again, people need to say, because then the question becomes, why are you doing it, Mr. Trump? You know, at some point, Democrats are going to win the presidency. So why are you risking American lives and American troops to do this? Again, I think on some of this, Democrats want to talk about inflation. I get it, right? They don't want to talk about this stuff, but I think some of this stuff is important to spell out for people. Canada. Bravo, Canada. Canada reached a very large trade deal with China today. Canada is our largest trading partner, not larger than the EU, but as countries go, Canada is a huge trading partner. And because we've screwed Canada over so many times with Trump, they turned around to the Chinese and reached a massive trade deal with the Chinese today. Now, the best part was Trump's trade negotiator gets asked about it and is very upset and says, this is a very bad deal for Canada. They shouldn't have done this. This is not good for the US. It's not good for the world. A couple hours later, Trump gets asked about it and goes, I think it's a good deal. I kind of give them credit. We should reach a deal with China too. I give them credit for doing it already. He doesn't know what the deal is. I love this. His own trade people a couple hours ago said, this deal's it's terrible for us that China and Canada are reaching this deal. And Trump turns around and embraces it. He goes, I think it's good. I just love when he does stuff because he has no clue what he's doing. And he just undercuts his own people, Let me get into that. So Critter's asking a good question people have asked before, explaining the midterm elections and why Trump is worried. Okay. In America, we have presidential elections every 4 years. The presidential election, as you know, was a year ago. There's not another one for 3 years at this point, right? So you'd say, well, why does Trump care about an election this year about Congress? He's not up for re-election for 3 years. Correct. Now, Trump isn't up for re-election anyway because he already was president once before. You can only be president twice and then you're gone. So he's not running again next time anyway, regardless of what he says. But congressional elections are taking place this year. So presidential elections, the next presidential election is 2028. The next congressional election is 2026, later this year in November. Congress, it's a little confusing, but Congress has elections every 2 years. In the House of Representatives, all 435 members are up for election every 2 years. It's crazy. It's really kind of crazy. They get elected to 2-year terms, House members. So House members get 2-year terms, and all of them are up for election every 2 years. So they basically win election, and they've immediately got to start making money to raising money to fight the next election. In the United States Senate, it's a little different. Their terms are 6 years, not 2 years like the House. Because it's 6 years, rather than having all the elections the same year, right? And then you go for 6 years, they decided for whatever reason to split the elections by every 2 years. So 1/3 of the Senate will be up for re-election this year. 2 years later, another third of the Senate will be up for re-election. 2 years later, another third of the Senate. And every 2 years, 1/3 of the Senate will be up for election. And the ones who win are elected for 6 years. So you get how it works? They're 6-year terms. 2 years later, another third gets 6-year terms. 2 years later, another third. So it keeps tiering it every 2 years for the Senate. So the entire House of Representatives is up for election this fall, 1/3 of the Senate. In the Senate, it's not expected that Democrats are going to take back the Senate at this point. House of Representatives, great expectations that Democrats could take the House of Representatives. Why does it matter for Trump? Well, Trump likes to ignore Congress as much as he can, right? He likes to tell Congress to go to hell. But that's because Republicans do what he wants. He still needs Congress. Congress has to pass the bills. Congress especially has to pass the funding bills, the appropriations bills. If we saw with the government shutdown, when Congress didn't pass the bills funding the government shut down. He needs Congress to do that. Well, Democrats are in the minority right now. It's very hard for Democrats to muck things up for Trump in the minority. They can't, not only can they not control what bills pass, so the Republicans can pass any crazy legislation they want, they can't even hold hearings The majority party, the Republican Party, controls the House and the Senate. They decide when they hold hearings. They decide what the hearings are about. They decide who the witnesses are. So, in other words, if they hold a hearing about the economy, they can simply have all these crazy people who say the economy is going great. Inflation's not a problem, right? They control everything. Democrats can't. Subpoenas. Trump breaks the law. His staff breaks the law. They want to subpoena them. Now, Trump, you're not going to subpoena, but the other people you do. Thank you, Diane. Subpoenas, majority votes. Well, Democrats aren't the majority. Democrats cannot issue subpoenas. Republicans aren't going to issue subpoenas against Donald Trump and his people. Democrats will. So if Democrats take back the House of Representatives, what's the first thing that happens? Hearings. Every one of these things Trump does, there's a hearing. There's a hearing on Greenland. And once a hearing happens, by the way, why do hearings matter? Hearings are great public relations opportunities. You get experts up there, and the experts talk about what a disaster this is, what it's going to mean for America if Trump declares war on its allies, if Trump declares war on NATO, what it's going to do to America, how it's going to help Russia, how it's going to help China, how it's going to help, why it's going to convince China to invade Taiwan, by the way, why it's going to convince Russia to invade Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, our other European allies. You're going to have hearings doing that, and they're going to be newsworthy. And the news media is going to cover those hearings, and they're going to create news. Another thing you can do, subpoena. You can now get people, Trump's people, that Trisha woman who keeps lying in Homeland Security, who keeps lying about all the murders. You haul her before Congress with a subpoena. She doesn't come. If she doesn't come, Trump won't enforce he won't enforce a criminal investigation against her. But when they leave office, they can enforce one against her. The next administration, Democratic administration, can go after her. Now, Trump can try to pardon her, and I'm not sure. We had looked into this. I'm not convinced a pardon works entirely. We had discussed this before. Somebody who's more up on the sort of civil procedure of all of this, but I believe we were talking like some of these subpoenas or some of these what am I looking for? Some of these, I'm tired. When somebody refuses a subpoena and they get, indictment, right? Some of these are administrative, I thought, or whatever, right? What are you doing, Sash? You don't want water. You're just being whiny. Okay, I hear you being whiny. You're not getting anything to eat yet. My dog's being whiny. In any case, pardons will not, contempt, exactly, contempt. You can have civil contempt and criminal contempt. Trump can, I believe, pardon one of them. I don't believe he can pardon the other one. So that gets interesting. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot you could potentially do. It is, and Democrats don't have to pass the legislation. If Trump doesn't want to agree to what the Democrats say, then the bills don't get passed and the government isn't funded. But now in principle, the Democrats have a better chance of negotiating. They can say, no, we've presented our bill. He's refusing. It gets much more complicated as to who's holding up the government, as to who's closing it down. So it gets very interesting. It gets very interesting at that point. Because like I said, for a lot of these people, they can disobey a subpoena, but Trump has to pardon them. And it's not entirely clear to me. I can ask ChatGPT. It doesn't always get these things right, though. I worry a little bit about this. Because something like legal like this, I'm not entirely sure ChatGPT is going to get it totally right, but let's see. I want you to put on your lawyer hat as an expert in civil procedure, administrative procedure in the U.S. government, but from a legal perspective. And I don't want you to give me answers that are just guesses. I want you to give me solid legal answers that you've investigated and researched. We are wondering if Democrats take back the House of Representatives in November and they subpoena members of the Trump administration and they don't show up. Obviously, Democrats would want contempt charges filed against them, but the Trump administration won't file charges against their own people, right? They're not going to, his Department of Justice isn't going to file contempt charges against his own attorney general, for example. My question is, if we get to the next administration, let's say a Democrat gets elected in 2028, can they go after those officials for contempt? That's my first question. Once the administration is passed, I think the answer is yes, but I want you to confirm legally. My other question is, can you pardon civil contempt or can you only pardon criminal contempt?
All right, let's dive into this from a legal perspective. I'll break it down into those two main questions and we'll keep it solid and well-grounded. Prosecuting for contempt after a new administration takes office. Legally speaking, the short answer is yes. A new administration can indeed pursue contempt charges that a previous administration chose not to act on. Contempt of Congress is essentially a criminal misdemeanor under federal law. And while it requires the Department of Justice to prosecute, a DOJ under a new president can revisit decisions not to prosecute made by their predecessors. There's no legal barrier that says once one administration declines to prosecute a contempt referral, a future administration can't pick it up. Of course, there are practical and political considerations, but from a purely legal standpoint, it can absolutely revisit it. Pardoning civil versus criminal contempt. Now, on the pardon question, this is a bit of a nuanced area. The presidential pardon power under the U.S. Constitution extends to offenses against the United States, which typically means federal criminal offenses. Criminal contempt of court or criminal contempt of Congress is generally considered pardonable because it's a criminal offense. Civil contempt, however, is more about coercing compliance with a court order rather than punishing a past act. Because it's not strictly a criminal offense, it's a gray area whether a pardon would apply. The general consensus among legal scholars is that presidential pardons are mainly intended for criminal matters, and civil contempt is usually seen as outside that scope. So, while a president might attempt it, it's not clearly established that you can pardon someone out of a purely civil contempt scenario. In other words, criminal contempt is pardonable. Civil contempt is unshaken.
Well, okay, but then how does it work if they're disobeying congressional subpoenas, though, for hearings? You were suggesting that would be criminal contempt, though, so it could be pardoned.
Exactly. That's the distinction. If we're talking about contempt of Congress for ignoring a subpoena, that's generally treated as a criminal contempt scenario. In other words, when Congress votes to hold someone in contempt for defying a subpoena, they refer it to the Department of Justice for prosecution as a criminal matter.
So there's no way to hold these guys accountable if Democrats take over the Congress in November and they call up the Trump people for hearings, for subpoenas, and the Trump people disobey them. If Trump pardons everybody, there's no way to hold them accountable when the next Democratic president takes over.
So here's the bottom line. If Trump were to pardon his officials for criminal contempt before leaving office, that would indeed wipe out the criminal liability for that specific offense. And in that scenario, once a valid pardon is in place, a future administration couldn't turn around and re-prosecute those same individuals for that same criminal contempt. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean there are zero consequences or no accountability at all. For example, Congress can still use its own inherent contempt powers, although that's rarely used in modern times, or there might be political repercussions. But strictly from a criminal legal standpoint, a pardon would shut the door on that particular route. In short, if a president...
Okay, so that's not, if that's correct, that's not good news, because then Trump could just keep pardoning people. It's really kind of crazy. Trump could just keep pardoning people and they would just keep disobeying Congress. You know, now at some point, Republicans have to worry about this because Republicans are going to worry at some point that Democrats are going to say, okay, if you spent 2 years ignoring subpoenas, then we're going to spend 2 years ignoring subpoenas in the future. And we're just going to keep pardoning people, you know? And say, as long as, and this is where Democrats have to say, just like, by the way, what Gavin Newsom did in California, where he said, we're going to gerrymander and we're going to take back the exact number of seats that Texas stole in the House of Representatives. Texas stole 5 seats at the request of Trump. California will therefore take back 5. They didn't take back 8. They didn't take back 10. They only did 5 because that's how many Texas itself did, right? Democrats need to say the same thing. They have to say, when they take over, if Trump decides to start doing that, say, okay, Republicans, if you're okay with that, then we're going to do the same thing for as long as Trump does it. If Trump does it for 2 years, we're going to have 2 years of the next Democratic administration, and we're going to ignore Congress's subpoenas, and we're going to pardon people. And then for the rest of the 2 years, then we'll listen to your subpoenas. But as long as he does it, we're going to do it. Democrats probably won't do it, but they need to. Democrats need to say, we are literally going to do what Republicans are doing, period, on everything. Everything, you know? Anyway. True. All right. There's a ton of more news here. We've been talking about everything tonight, guys. Listen to this. This was interesting. This was CNN talking about ICE. Listen to this. Tensions between law enforcement and protesters in the Minneapolis area are escalating again today during anti-ICE demonstrations outside the Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Building. Apparently spurred, this is why the tensions have spurred, okay? Actually, I'm going to read the second half of the sentence first. Federal officers in tactical gear forcefully moved the crowd away from the street back to the sidewalk. So these thugs came out with their masks on and their military gear and forcefully moved the crowd back, right? Which, of course, risks violence. They were actually using violence, but it risks more violence. Guess why they did this? Guess why ICE came out in their masks and their military gear and shoved the crowd back? One protester was dancing in the street just outside the building. A protester was dancing in the street and ICE didn't like it. So they sent out throngs of armed men in military gear with masks on to forcefully shove the crowd back because one guy, I even say guy, it could have been a woman. One guy or woman was dancing in the street and ICE found that offensive. I mean, again, dance like your life depends on it, or whatever the expression is, right? Or like nobody's watching. I mean, I know even better. Dance like, no, that would be a great t-shirt. Dance like ICE is watching, right? I mean, these people, they're right, the frog costumes, etc. They need to keep standing up to them. Don't break the law, but exercise your constitutional rights. And if they don't like it, ICE can move to a country where we don't obey constitutional rights. But I love that. He was dancing. He was dancing. Oh, listen, at least. Oh my God. I didn't even read the rest of the sentence. At least 5 ICE agents were on top of the protester who seemed to have triggered the heavy response, and that person was detained. 5 agents tackled the protester for dancing and arrested him. Oh, detained. I love how they say detained. This is the other fascist part about all this. It's not an arrest. I love this. It's not an arrest. They simply take you in and haul you in for hours under, armed gunmen. Anonymous armed gunmen simply take you into a building and lock you up for hours. But because they're not charging you with a crime, it's okay. I would argue it's quite the opposite. I would argue if they're not charging you with a crime, then they should not be able to take you in, because this is, again, it's what fascism is about, right? It is what dictatorship is about. It is about detaining your political enemies and not even charging them with a crime, but you simply have the right to kidnap them, to take them, to lock them up. No, you should have to charge them with a crime. You should have to give them Miranda rights, or you have to let them go. And you have to tell them why you're arresting them. But you can't say you were dancing. You can't, I mean, guys, this guy or gal was dancing, and 5 ICE agents pounced on him and took him away. Man. Big New York Times analysis of the Renee Good video. So I think it's worth getting into again. This is the video from the ICE agent, Jonathan Ross, who killed the innocent American woman, Renee Cook, who was at the protest. A couple different things. New York Times did another sort of review. Thank you, Angeline. Keep the guys, keep the gifts coming, guys. I appreciate this. I do this for a living, so I'm very appreciative of all the support you guys give me. Please do keep the gifts coming for the super fans. As you know, we do a Saturday show, especially for you guys. But for the gifts overall, really, really appreciate the support. So thank you. Thank you, Jen. So Renee Good. Renee Good is the woman who was murdered by ICE agents for actually, interesting thing, because I noticed this in the video today. I was going to say for blocking the street. She wasn't blocking the street. New York Times did a new analysis of all the videos and showing that the ICE agent was at fault in large parts of this. At the beginning of the video, you see the ICE agent in question, the one who shot her, drove around her car and went down the block. He drove around her car. She wasn't blocking traffic. Her car was sideways, but she wasn't actually blocking traffic. Literally, he drove right by. The guy who shot her drove right by. So the first problem is, why did they even care? Why didn't they just drive around her? Why did they get out of the car and they grabbed her handle? They put their hand in the car. They said, get out. They were going to arrest her. Why? If she wasn't even blocked, she had her car sideways. Okay, it's whatever. It's weird, but she wasn't even blocking traffic. Good question, right? Well, New York Times analysis of the rest of the video. Listen to this. I'm going to read this from the Times. In a video analysis, the Times focuses on some of the key contested moments of the agent's cell phone video alongside other footage. More videos are likely to emerge, but the visual evidence shows no indication that the agent who fired the shots, Jonathan Ross, had been run over. Read this again from the Times. The visual evidence shows no indication that the agent who fired the shots, Jonathan Ross, had been run over. They keep trying to claim that this guy ran her over, right? Or that she ran the guy over. That he hit her too. No visual evidence of this either, that she hit him. The footage provides visibility into the positioning between the agent and Ms. Good's SUV in the key moments of escalation. Listen to this again. Conclusion. It also establishes how Mr. Ross, the ICE agent, put himself in a dangerous position near her vehicle in the first place. He brought it on himself. First point, the agent's cell phone footage shows he steps in front of her car as she's backing up to prepare a 3-point turn. So they're surrounding her and being obnoxious. She decides to drive away. She turns around, backs up, okay? She now looks forward. Her car's in reverse. She looks, because this is America, right? Actually, because she's even in America, our cars are automatic, but to go from reverse to drive, you still got to do it manually. She looks down and puts the car in drive. As she does this, she puts her hand on the wheel and turns the wheel like this to go that way, not to go forward. Okay? This is important, though. The agent's cell phone footage shows he steps in front of her car as she's backing up to prepare the 3-point turn. She's backing up the car, and she's looking behind her. She's already moving the car. Why did he step in front of her car when the car was moving? He didn't step in front of a car that was parked. He stepped in front of a moving car. That's something I didn't realize before. I mean, it starts to change the whole story. You stepped in front of a moving car? Are you insane? What are you doing, right? So he steps in front of her moving car when she's backing up. The car was already moving when he chose to step in front of it. You see her look down, shift into drive, and turn her wheels to the right, away from the agent as she moves forward. Agent Ross was a few feet in front of her car as she shifts into drive, and he doesn't attempt to move away. They mentioned this too. So she backs up. He steps in front of her car. She shifts into drive. She turns the wheel. He sees her do this. He sees her start to move forward. He doesn't step out of the way. He knows she's now moving forward. He doesn't step out of the way. Okay? Again, you can't say I shot her to stop her from hitting me if quite literally you didn't care that she might hit you, right? I mean, when you could have simply stepped out of the way. 1 second here. Oh, his cell phone. The video of his cell phone, right? He took video on his cell phone, and Homeland Security tried to claim, the video on the cell phone proves that she hit him. They found other video. What you actually see is he's got his phone. He's got his phone in the right hand. He decides to videotape her. We don't know why. He then decides to step in front of her car. He puts the phone in this hand. He pulls his gun, right? He then he's a couple feet back from the car. For some reason, he reaches out with his cell phone and he puts his hand on the edge of the car, but he's a couple feet to the side of the car now, on the driver's side. He's no longer in front of the car. He hasn't fired yet. He puts his hand out and lays it on the car. Not clear why. When she starts driving, his hand is on the car with the phone pointing up and the video is still running. That's why you see the phone go like this. You hear a noise on the phone because he's got his phone on the car. So the car's driving and the phone goes across the top of the car. That's it. But it also shows he was on the side of the car already by the time she started going forward. He's on the side of the car. If you're on the side of the car and not in front of the car, you don't need to open fire, right? I mean, even if it were considered okay, and it's not okay, but even if it were considered okay to fire when she's moving forward, by the time she started moving forward, he was on the side of her car. That's when he opened fire. In other words, he opened fire because she drove away. He didn't open fire to save his life. He opened fire because, as he said, as she's already mortally wounded, but the car is careening forward, he yells out at the car, effing B-I-T-C-H. He yells at the car. He didn't say effing, of course. He said the word. And he didn't spell out the B word. He said it. He called her an effing B word as she's moving away. That's why he shot her, because he didn't like her and she tried to drive away. Hold on here. One sec here. Oh, this is great too. The New York Times also says, in the part of the video where Ross claims he was hit by the car, you see a visible gap between his legs and the vehicle. He's on the side of the car, and there's a visible space between him and the vehicle as the vehicle's driving away. She didn't even touch him. His phone, his hand was on the car because he's leaning over, and it moved along the car as she drove away. That's it. That's it. His quote, his feet are positioned outside the SUV's path. Quote from the New York Times, his feet are positioned outside the SUV's path. He wasn't in the path of the car, and he fired on her anyway. She gets no blame for it in that case. She was driving away. You don't get to murder somebody and shoot them dead because they drove away. By the way, you don't even get to do it like, with a bank robbery. This wasn't a bank robbery. This was a woman who parked in the street, didn't even block the ICE guys because they were able to drive around her. She just parked in the street to harass them. If she's breaking the law, you can arrest her. You can't shoot her in the face 3 times and kill her because you think she's an effing B word for parking in the street and harassing you. Not in America. You can do that in Russia. You can do that in China. Yeah. In America, no. Police are not allowed to execute you. But you know what? Here's the thing. It would be the same thing like the state, because police do represent the state. It would be the same thing like the government executing you. It'd be the same thing. And what's funny is, I think the people defending this cop wouldn't defend this. What if he just arrested her instead? What if he pulled her out? She tried driving away. You can even pretend he was standing in front of the car. She tries driving away, and they're able to pull her out of the car and arrest her. Can the government give her the death penalty for that and execute her? Because that's what they did on the scene. That's what people defending this cop are arguing. Somebody just said, did she have any culpability? Well, then you suggest we give her the death penalty? Really? I'm going to bet probably no Trump supporter or MAGA supporter or supporter of this ICE guy would agree that this woman should have been given the death penalty for what she did. Nobody's going to agree. Crazy people might say that. No normal person's going to say that. But somehow you're okay with the officer executing her on the spot. Maybe you should think about that. Trump is now praising the Venezuelan opposition leader after she gave him her Nobel Prize. She's the best thing ever. I'd never met her before. I didn't know how great she was. I mean, yeah. Trump had another corrupt pardon today. He actually pardoned a fraudster. He also pardoned the former governor of Puerto Rico. Listen to this. She pleaded guilty in August to accepting a campaign donation from a non-U.S. resident. She previously endorsed Trump ahead of the 2020 presidential election. So because she endorsed him for president, he pardoned her. Final point here, and this story is a little all over the place. Ukraine is ready to sign. I find this story a little odd. Ukraine is reportedly ready to sign a peace deal with the Trump people. And they're having last-minute discussions with the Trump people with security guarantees. And they're willing to sign a peace deal with Trump in Davos next week, allegedly. I don't quite understand where this stands because we had no indication that the Trump people, or Russia for that matter, had come around on the issue of Ukraine giving up land and all this kind of crap the Trump people want. So I don't quite understand where all of this stands right now. I mean, there's a big stories on it, and I'm reading the stories, and I keep going, how is Ukraine ready to sign a peace deal when the current peace deals we're talking about Ukraine giving up all their land, which obviously Ukraine's not going to do. So I don't know. On that front, we will sit back and not take a break. We'll still keep talking, but I'm going to relax. I'm done with the news there was a little more Ukraine news, but none of it's. The Czech Republic is sending some planes very shortly, which is a good thing. There was something else. What was the other story I was going to tell about Ukraine? European Union is looking at ways to fast track Ukraine's accession to the bloc, but without giving it full voting rights, which is interesting. Russia's going to hate that. So that would be a good thing. Anyway, no, Himsky, we're not talking about Ukraine losing their land. Trump wants Ukraine to give extra land to the Russians just because. He wants Ukraine to give them extra land. He wanted them to withdraw from Ukrainian land that the Russians do not control and just give it to Russia. So that's what we're actually talking about. We're not talking about Ukraine having to acknowledge that they lost land to Russia. No. Trump wanted them to give Russia even more land that Ukraine currently controls. And it gets even more fun. It's land that Russia can't get. Russia's been trying for years to get the land in this war, and they just can't get it. So Trump said, why don't you give it to the Russians anyway? It was like, what? Yeah. So very bad stuff. Anyway. Nobel is a small gold medal. I don't know if the medal has her name on it. That's a good question. I don't know if it does. Anybody know if the Nobel Prize medal, it's a small little gold medal like this. Sasha's doing well. I'm getting her arthritis drugs come tomorrow. She's already on pain. The painkiller works great, but she's on an arthritis drug that she gets tomorrow. And then I think she's going to be very happy. Hopefully, we shall see. But thanks for asking. Anyway, well, she framed it. Yeah. Is ICE immune from state laws? Not if they're pardoned. No, because you've got to get pardoned by the president can pardon federal crimes. A state governor can pardon state crimes in his state. That's it. President cannot pardon state crimes. A state governor cannot pardon federal crimes. So Trump cannot pardon any of these guys for crimes committed by, for crimes charged in the states. So that's what's going to be an interesting question, is whether any of these states can go after the ICE guys. I don't know. They maybe. I mean, they say murder and things tend to be state charges. Sasha is turning 16 in 4 days. At least that's her believed birthday. Her believed birthday is January 20th. I think NATO members, Colin, should take very clear positions on NATO. On Greenland. I get why they're being coy, because they don't want to piss off Trump. I think when you try not to piss off Trump, you enable Trump. Right? When you don't want to say that, when you say we're really not happy that you're making all this talk about Greenland. No, you need to say, if you go to Greenland, it's going to be over our dead bodies and we're going to go to war. And you're going to go to war with NATO. You're going to go to war with Greenland. You're going to go to war with every NATO ally. And you're bigger than us, so you could probably win, but you're going to lose a lot of ships. You're going to lose a lot of men. We will too. And you explain to the American people why their troops have casualties because you decided to attack a NATO ally. And you can kiss all trade gone with America, with Europe. And as some European government said today, you can also kiss all the American bases in Europe goodbye. All of them, gone. That's not good for Europe. It's really not good for... Now, Trump may not care. A lot of Republicans care. America cares. Trump may not care, but it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. Thank you, Elpon. Paul. I'm saying Elpon. Paul. Oh, Paul. That's cute. It took me a second to figure out what your name was. Thank you for the gift. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Appreciate them. We would lose everything. Correct. Could Europe dump the dollar? I mean, the Europe could try. Europe. I don't know what in terms of the sort of the macroeconomic stuff, I'm not sure how it works. No, it's, I really think the Europeans need to make very clear. And you know what? You make clear to the U.S. military too, right? You're all gone from Europe. You want to keep supporting this man? You're all gone from Europe. Hold on. Looking here. But it's the only way he's going to listen to people. The only way he's going to care is standing up to him. And again, you stand up to him and he digs in more. Too bad. At some point, At some point, you got to stand up to the man. Just looking here. Okay, just checking. Just checking. Will the military support our president? We don't know. Will the military go to war against NATO allies? Will they invade NATO? Is that even a legal order? We are going to have midterms. We are going to have midterm elections, or everyone needs to be out on as president. Senator Gallego said when we interviewed him, U.S. Senator Gallego, if Trump were to call off the midterm elections, Senator Gallego called for shutting down the entire economy, forcibly shutting down the economy. He talked about. In other words, we have a national protest, but as he said, the national protest would be literally shutting down the economy. It would be blocking roads so people couldn't even get to work. So yes, if Trump were to call off elections, U.S. Senator Gallego has already made clear what's going to happen next. People will shut down the entire U.S. economy. And good luck with that. I mean, look what's happening with ICE. People are standing up to ICE when it's much more dangerous. I mean, granted, the Trump people are going to threaten you anyway, but, you know, yeah, France, forget it. This happened in France, or the rest of you. If this happened in France, the French would have not let this happen. Yes, we unfortunately kind of let this happen. Midterms are November of 2026 this year. Now, the only thing is he could try to mess with midterms. Last time, Trump was talking about having that. Anyhow, he now says he regrets he never did this. Trump wanted to have the National Guard basically steal the ballot box, take the ballot boxes so they couldn't be counted because he knew he lost. And he was going to have the National Guard because he claimed, oh, there's so much crime, we're going to take the ballot boxes. Once you take the ballot boxes, we no longer know who voted for what, because the ballot boxes are no longer secure if the National Guard takes them. So the problem is there's lots of things he could do to really screw up the election results, so we have no idea who won. And again, then I'm with Senator Gallego if he does that. We've got more stuff we can do, guys. You know? Well, Trump certainly does a lot of things that make Russia happy. You know, the Greenland thing is incredibly dangerous because we declare war on NATO and NATO ends. China now says, well, invading Taiwan just got a lot more interesting. China's worried about what the U.S. is going to do, but they're worried about what Europe's going to do too. If China knows that the U.S. is now at war with Europe, first of all, China will probably, if the U.S. is at war with Europe, China will invade Taiwan because they're going to see the U.S. is occupied militarily. That's the first problem. Second of all, the U.S. is literally at war with Europe. Europe isn't going to come and help America in a war in Taiwan at the same time Europe's at war over Greenland. They're not going to do it. So if you're China, you go, this is getting very interesting as far as maybe we should invade Taiwan if Trump invades Greenland. Second of all, if you're Russia, same thing. If you're Russia, there's parts of Poland you want. You'd like Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia back. Well, if America's at war with Europe and Greenland, maybe now is the time for Russia to go and take back parts of Eastern Europe and literally take it, annex it back, like Poland, like parts of Poland, like parts of the Baltic states. I mean, he is setting us up because now NATO is, first of all, NATO's gone and the Europeans are at war with the Americans. The Americans aren't coming to help the Europeans. So you are potentially setting us up for multiple world wars simultaneously. And even more so, China and Russia talk to each other if this happens and says, you know what? If Trump does this, if Trump invades Greenland and causes a war with NATO and NATO falls apart, the second he does that, we both need to invade. China goes into Taiwan, Russia goes into Baltic states and Poland. Thank you, Shayna. Because now, not only are you're dealing with multiple simultaneous wars in that case, you're dealing with the U.S. being at war with Europe at the same time that Russia invades from the east and China invades in the other east, right? So now, is the U.S. going to be involved in 3 wars? Well, we're not going to help Europe if we're at war with Europe. And is Europe going to come help us? No, it is a freaking disaster. And Kim could invade North Korea as well, South Korea. North Korea could invade South Korea as well. Thank you for the gift there, Melanie. No, it is a freaking disaster. It is a freaking disaster what could happen next. We could have multiple world wars happening simultaneously. Middle East, I mean, You could have a lot of stuff happen, you know? Would it be a good thing strategically if the U.S. somehow purchased Greenland? Maybe. I don't object to more land, right? I mean, if somebody legally wants to give us land, doesn't bother me, right? Greenland, pretty strategic. They got minerals. The way the Arctic is opening up with climate change, I don't object to taking it if we pay a fair price for it, right? Oh, I'll bet they are. Hold on. Of course they are. Hold on. Hold on. Where is this? Where is this? Oh, God. Yep. Department of Justice. See, again, Trump, once again, dictator. Trump now has the Department of Justice, which no longer is about justice. The FBI is no longer about prosecuting criminals. It is all now, these agencies simply exist to prosecute Trump's political enemies. That's it. We are no longer a democracy. CBS News, Department of Justice investigating Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey over alleged conspiracy to impede immigration agents. They're accusing them of a conspiracy. Okay? Trump's going after Walz because Walz ran against Trump for president. That's why Trump's going after Walz, for starters. Okay? He was vice president for Kamala Harris. That's why that's happening, right? The Justice Department is investigating Minnesota officials, including Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, over an alleged conspiracy to impede federal immigration agents, an extraordinary escalation in Trump's clash with Democratic leaders. Guys, unfortunately, I can't even say how bad this is because TikTok wouldn't like it, which is what is so dangerous about the situation with media and social media in America today. This is so dangerous. This is not even funny right now. This crosses the line so far into, martial law, whatever you want to call it. This is not democracy anymore with this kind of action. This is autocracy. This is dictatorship. This is not democracy anymore. It's not. You do not, and Trump has done this repeatedly, and he even was caught once because he let the direct message slip publicly. You do not allow the president to order the Justice Department to arrest people, to order the Justice Department to investigate people. Biden didn't do it. Biden sat on his ass for 2 years before he appointed a special counsel, and he let the special counsel investigate whether Trump had committed crimes. Biden didn't. My God, Merrick Garland, Biden's Department of Justice was great, was literally could do everything they could not to investigate Trump for his crimes. Trump ordered them all. One of the sources, a U.S. official, said the investigation stems from statements that Walz and Frey have made about the thousands of immigration, about statements. Oh, so politicians are not even able to make statements anymore. Walz said in a statement 2 days ago, it was Alyssa Slotkin. Last week, it was Jerome Powell. Before that, Mark Kelly, weaponizing exactly. Wow. This is so freaking dangerous, people. This is so freaking dangerous. And again, all the Second Amendment people who warned about this happening under Democrats are okay with it now. Supreme Court, Supreme Court, I don't know if there's anything for Supreme Court to say. You can't have the Supreme Court weigh in on a justice investigation. Supreme Court could weigh in on an indictment, but even the indictment, the Supreme Court could try to weigh in, but I don't know, guys. This is really screwed up stuff. This is so freaking screwed up stuff. Man. So freaking dangerous here. It's draining, but you got to keep fighting. You don't have a choice. But yeah. He's going to go after Democrats. He's only 1 year in. He talked about, By the way, he talked about this before. He talked about arresting Hillary Clinton. He talked about throwing her in prison. Remember? Trump for years has been talking about throwing Democrats in prison. Now he's finally doing it. And Republicans as well. Republicans who stood up to him, like James Comey, right? Democrats who tried to investigate him, like Letitia James. I mean, man, this is so freaking dangerous. It's not even funny. Man. Yeah. No, I mean, people have got to, I don't know how we do it. They've got to stand up to these guys. You know? Yeah, I think the Supreme Court will let him do what he wants, I suspect. So freaking dangerous. So freaking dangerous. Man, oh man. I don't know what else. We're already at 7:15 anyway. Man, I'm gonna have to do a TikTok video on this now. I don't know what the difference is between Russia, China, and the US anymore. I don't. I mean, we've got a free market economy-ish, although there's a lot of socialism going on now from Trump. But in terms of the rule of law, we no longer have rule of law in this country. No. Hey, Hex, we don't. You know, we don't. So, yeah. Very scary stuff. No. We're a kleptocracy now. We're an autocracy. You know, he can do whatever he wants. And again, openly use. But, you know, here's the thing, too. Even if you think Democrats did this to Trump, which they didn't, but even if you think they did, Republicans were so outspoken about how bad it is to use the government to investigate your political enemies, so they're doing it themselves. Well, which way is it, Sasha? Like, which one is it? Is it such a bad thing? You know, no, it'd be one thing to say you were going to investigate the Democrats who investigated Trump. If you really thought they broke crimes, right? They committed crimes by investigating Trump. Fair enough, right? But he's literally using this to go after everybody now. He doesn't like the Democrats in Minnesota. He doesn't like what I love this. He doesn't like what they said about ICE agents. So he's going to try to throw them in prison and investigate them. Man, Jesus Christ. I hear you, dog. 1 second. I can't say what would need. That's cute. Imagine a wish could be granted from a genie. What would you need to have happen to fix this whole mess? Not allowed to say that on the air. Not allowed to get into that. So we're not going to. Although my answer isn't what you'd think it would be. It's way more complicated. It's not what you think it would be. It's a different answer, actually. But it's still something that I imagine there's no nuance on TikTok or there's no nuance on TikTok. So, yeah, get rid of Fox News. That would be an interesting idea. Retroactively get rid of Fox News. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Interesting idea. All right, guys, have a good night. It's 7:17. I'm going to go. Thank you for joining us. I've still got to do a TikTok video now about this horrible mess. Man. All right, tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern is Coffee Talk for the monthly subscribers, for the for our, I was going to say fans, our super fans. I almost used the other word, the O word, for our super fans. We don't have the O fans. They don't exist. I'd be making a lot more money with that one, I think. Well, not at my age, but still. That's very funny. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you all. All right, Discord. On that happy note, see you guys. I hear you, dog. 1 second. All right, YouTube. Good night, guys. All right, TikTok.